Introduction. The Roman conquest of Greece stands as one of the defining chapters in the history of both the Greek and Roman civilizations. This momentous transition occurred over a span of several centuries and ultimately resulted in Greece becoming a Roman province. Initially, Greece was not a unified state, but a collection of independent city-states and powerful Hellenistic kingdoms, each with its own politics, culture, and military power. By the 2nd century BCE, however, these city-states and kingdoms found themselves increasingly vulnerable to the expanding power of Rome. The documentary delves into the complex series of events, wars, and political maneuverings that set the stage for Roman dominance over Greece. The conquest was not the result of a single war or battle, but rather a long series of conflicts that saw the gradual erosion of Greek independence. The history of this conquest is inextricably tied to Rome's growth as a military and political powerhouse in the Mediterranean, as well as the internal struggles and divisions within Greece itself. One of the key elements of the Roman conquest was the involvement of the Greek city-states and kingdoms in the wars of the Hellenistic period, particularly after the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BCE. His empire fragmented into several successor kingdoms, and the Greek world was embroiled in constant warfare, which created a power vacuum that Rome would eventually exploit. The Greek states, including Macedonia, Athens, and Sparta, were involved in various alliances and conflicts, often at odds with each other, making it easier for Rome to step in as a dominant force. Rome's first significant interaction with Greece occurred during the Macedonian Wars, a series of conflicts fought between the Roman Republic and the Kingdom of Macedonia, which was one of the most powerful Hellenistic states. These wars culminated in the defeat of Macedon at the Battle of Pydna in 168 BCE, which marked the beginning of the end for Greek independence. While Macedonia was reduced to a Roman protectorate, other Greek states, such as Athens and Sparta, were also brought into the Roman orbit through alliances, coercion, or outright conquest. The documentary also highlights the role of political intrigue and diplomacy in the Roman conquest of Greece. The Romans were adept at using alliances and political manipulation to further their goals, often exploiting the internal divisions within Greek society. The Roman Senate and military leaders, such as General Lucius Cornelius Scipio, were skilled at exploiting the weaknesses of the Greek states, encouraging rivalries, and capitalizing on the often fractious relationships between different Greek city-states and kingdoms. The Greek world also suffered from its own internal weaknesses, including political instability, economic decline, and social upheaval. These factors, combined with the Roman military's superior tactics, discipline, and organization, made it increasingly difficult for the Greek states to resist Roman encroachment. Even the famed city of Athens, which had once been the intellectual and cultural center of the ancient world, found itself unable to repel the Romans. The final phase of the conquest came after the Greek city-states and kingdoms were gradually absorbed into the Roman Republic. In 146 BCE, following the destruction of Corinth, one of Greece's most important cities, Rome formally annexed Greece. This event marked the culmination of Rome's efforts to dominate the Greek world, though it was not the end of Greek influence in the Mediterranean. While Greece lost its political autonomy, its culture, philosophy, and art continued to have a profound impact on Roman society, shaping the Roman worldview for centuries to come. In the end, the Roman conquest of Greece was not just a military victory, it was a cultural assimilation that altered the course of Western civilization. The Greeks' contributions to philosophy, art, science, and politics deeply influenced Roman intellectual life, and their ideas became integral to the development of Roman culture. Despite the political subjugation of Greece, its cultural legacy endured, blending with Roman traditions to create a new, more powerful cultural and intellectual paradigm that would continue to shape the Western world for generations. This documentary captures the profound transformation of Greece from an independent civilization into a vital part of the Roman Empire, exploring the military, political, and cultural aspects of this momentous historical shift. The relationship between Rome and Greece in the 3rd century BCE was shaped by a series of significant military and political interactions. Rome's initial involvement with Greek forces was driven by external conflicts that inadvertently brought the two powers into contact, laying the foundation for future Roman expansion into the Greek world. Early Roman-Greek relations, 3rd century BCE, the Pyrrhic War, 280 to 275 BCE, marked the first direct clash between Roman and Greek forces. King Pyrrhus of Epirus, a Greek monarch, came to the aid of the Greek colonies in southern Italy, which were being threatened by Roman expansion. Pyrrhus, a skilled military leader, won battles at Heraclea and Asculum, but his forces suffered such heavy casualties that the victories were ultimately hollow, hence the term Pyrrhic victory. The war exposed the growing military capabilities of Rome, which, despite the losses, was able to rebuild and continue its expansion. Pyrrhus eventually withdrew from Italy, and the war ended with a significant shift in power dynamics as Rome emerged more resilient and capable than before. The First Macedonian War, 214 to 205 BCE, occurred within the broader context of the Second Punic War, which saw Rome fighting against Carthage. King Philip V of Macedon, seeking to expand his influence in the Mediterranean, allied himself with Carthage in a bid to challenge Roman power. In response, Rome intervened by supporting Greek city-states, particularly the Aetolian League, to counter Macedonian influence. However, the conflict ended without a decisive victory for either side, leaving the balance of power largely unchanged. Despite this inconclusive outcome, Rome's involvement in Greek affairs had significant implications for future relations between the two powers, signaling Rome's growing engagement in Mediterranean politics. In summary, the Pyrrhic War and the First Macedonian War were crucial early encounters that showcased Rome's military prowess and its emerging role in Mediterranean geopolitics. These conflicts, although not immediately leading to Rome's conquest of Greece, set the stage for future Roman involvement in the region, which would eventually culminate in Roman dominance over Greece in the subsequent century. The Second Macedonian War, 200 to 197 BCE, marked a turning point in the history of Roman-Greek relations, as it was during this conflict that Rome began to assert its military dominance over Greece, laying the groundwork for its eventual control of the region. Causes of the war. The origins of the Second Macedonian War can be traced to the aggressive expansionism of King Philip V of Macedon. Philip's ambitions to extend his influence in the Greek world and beyond brought him into direct conflict with several Greek states, including Rhodes and Pergamon. Both of these states, which had historically enjoyed relative autonomy, feared Macedonian hegemony and sought assistance from Rome, which was already a growing power in the Mediterranean. The appeal to Rome marked a significant shift in the balance of power, as Greek states increasingly turned to Rome for protection against external threats. Rome, which had previously been involved in conflicts in the Western Mediterranean, now had a vested interest in the eastern part of the Mediterranean. The alliance between Macedon and Rome's adversaries, such as Carthage in the previous wars, made Rome view Philip as a significant threat. In 200 BCE, Rome decided to intervene directly in the conflict, sending forces to the Greek mainland and the Aegean, thus officially becoming involved in Greek affairs. Key battle: Cynoscephaly, 197 BCE. The pivotal moment of the Second Macedonian War came at the Battle of Cynoscephaly in 197 BCE. In this confrontation, the Roman legions, commanded by Titus Quinctius Flamininus, faced off against the Macedonian phalanx led by Philip V. The battle was decisive, with the Roman forces delivering a crushing blow to the Macedonian army. One of the key factors in the Roman victory was the superiority of the Roman legion over the Macedonian phalanx. The Macedonian phalanx, a dense formation of hoplite soldiers with long spears, was highly effective in open terrain, but struggled to adapt to the flexible tactics of the Roman legions. The Roman legion, composed of smaller, more mobile units, was able to outmaneuver and decisively defeat the Macedonian phalanx, which was less adaptable in the heat of battle. The victory at Cynocephalae demonstrated not only Rome's military superiority, but also marked the beginning of the decline of the Macedonian kingdom as a dominant power in the Eastern Mediterranean. Aftermath and the symbolic declaration of Greek freedom. Following the defeat of Philip V at Cynocephalae, the aftermath of the war saw Rome emerge as the undisputed power in the region. In the years following the battle, the Romans imposed terms on Macedon, effectively limiting its power and reducing it to a client state. In 196 BCE, as a gesture to the Greek world and to solidify Roman influence, Titus Quinctius Flamininus famously declared at the Isthmian Games that Greece was free. This declaration, while symbolically significant, was not a true restoration of Greek independence. In reality, Rome had now secured considerable control over Greek affairs, and despite the formal declaration of freedom, Roman influence over Greece was far-reaching. While Greece was not annexed outright at this stage, Roman military and political presence in the region was increasingly undeniable. The declaration of Greek freedom was more a diplomatic maneuver than a promise of autonomy, as Rome's influence in Greece grew stronger with each passing year. Conclusion. The Second Macedonian War was a defining moment in the history of Roman-Greek relations. It not only marked the first direct Roman military intervention in Greece, but also demonstrated Rome's military superiority and its ability to influence the politics of the Greek world. While Greece was officially declared free, it was clear that Rome's growing influence in the region would soon lead to greater control. The Battle of Cynocephalae and the subsequent political maneuvering laid the groundwork for Rome's eventual domination of Greece, marking the beginning of a new chapter in Mediterranean history, where Rome would take center stage. The Seleucid War, 192 to 188 BCE, was a key conflict that further established Roman dominance in the Eastern Mediterranean, marking Rome's clash with the Seleucid Empire under Antiochus III. This war was pivotal not only in diminishing the power of the Seleucid Empire, but also in solidifying Roman influence over Greece and Asia Minor. Antiochus III's ambitions. Antiochus III, the king of the Seleucid Empire, had long aspired to restore his dynasty's former glory by expanding its territories. His ambitions were particularly focused on the western part of his empire, including Greece, where Rome was gaining increasing influence. At this time, the Podetolian League, a group of Greek city-states, had been a Roman ally but began to grow discontent with Roman dominance and sought new support. The Aetolians eventually turned to Antiochus III for assistance in challenging Roman power in the region. Antiochus, seizing the opportunity to expand his own empire and push against Roman influence, allied with the Aetolians and invaded Greece in 192 BCE. His goal was to establish a strong Seleucid presence in the region, particularly in Greece, which was critical to the Mediterranean balance of power. By aligning with the Aetolian League, Antiochus hoped to undermine Roman authority and create a new power dynamic. Battle of Thermopylae, 191 BCE. The Roman response to Antiochus III's ambitions was swift and decisive. A Roman force, led by the consul Manius Acilius Glabrio, met Antiochus's army at the Battle of Thermopylae in 191 BCE. The Seleucid forces, while large and experienced, were decisively defeated by the Roman legions. The battle demonstrated the continued effectiveness of Roman military strategy, especially against a relatively disorganized and overextended force like Antiochus's army. The defeat at Thermopylae forced Antiochus to retreat, abandoning his ambitions in Greece and returning to Asia Minor to consolidate his forces. This retreat marked the first major blow to Antiochus III's plans in Greece and revealed the limits of Seleucid power in the face of Rome's growing military might. Battle of Magnesia, 190 BCE. Following his defeat at Thermopylae, Antiochus III regrouped and attempted to defend his empire against the advancing Roman forces. The decisive confrontation occurred at the Battle of Magnesia in 190 BCE. The battle took place near the city of Magnesia in what is modern-day Turkey, and it was here that the Seleucid forces suffered a catastrophic defeat at the hands of the Roman legions, led by Lucius Cornelius Scipio Asiaticus and his brother, Scipio Africanus. The Battle of Magnesia was one of the defining moments of the Seleucid War. The battle was not only a crushing defeat for Antiochus, but also marked the end of Seleucid ambitions in the Western Mediterranean. Roman forces completely routed the Seleucid army, which was forced to retreat in disarray. The defeat sealed the fate of the Seleucid Empire in the region, forcing Antiochus to agree to a humiliating peace treaty with Rome. Aftermath and consequences. The aftermath of the Battle of Magnesia had far-reaching consequences for both Antiochus III and the Roman Republic. Under the terms of the Treaty of Apamea, 188 BCE, Antiochus was forced to relinquish most of his territorial holdings in Asia Minor and pay a substantial war indemnity to Rome. The Seleucid Empire's influence in the western part of its realm was effectively extinguished, and Rome emerged as the unchallenged power in the eastern Mediterranean. Moreover, this victory solidified Rome's control over Greece and Asia Minor. Though Greece itself was not yet formally annexed, Rome's role as the dominant power in the region was now indisputable. The Seleucid Empire, weakened by its defeat, would never again be able to threaten Roman interests in the Mediterranean. The war also marked a turning point in Rome's expansionist policies, as it solidified Rome's military dominance in the eastern Mediterranean and set the stage for further Roman involvement in the region's politics. Conclusion. The Seleucid War marked a critical chapter in the rise of Rome as the dominant power in the Mediterranean. Antiochus III's ambition to expand into Greece and challenge Roman authority was decisively crushed by the Roman military in two key battles, Thermopylae and Magnesia. These victories not only dismantled the Seleucid threat in the region, but also solidified Rome's military supremacy. The defeat of Antiochus III and the subsequent peace treaty ensured Roman control over Greece and Asia Minor, shaping the political landscape of the Mediterranean for centuries to come. The Third Macedonian War, 171 to 168 BCE, was the final conflict that ended Macedonian independence and solidified Roman control over the eastern Mediterranean. This war arose from the growing tension and distrust between Rome and Macedon, a kingdom that had long been a significant power in the Greek world. The war was marked by the determined efforts of King Perseus of Macedon, the son of Philip V, who sought to restore Macedonian influence. Rome, however, saw this as a direct threat to its supremacy in the region, ultimately leading to the annihilation of Macedonian power. King Perseus of Macedon. The Third Macedonian War was triggered largely by the actions of King Perseus of Macedon, who ascended to the throne in 179 BCE after the death of his father. Philip Fichte. Perseus inherited a kingdom that had suffered greatly from previous wars with Rome, but he sought to restore Macedonian power and expand its influence in the Balkans and Greece. He was determined to strengthen Macedon by rebuilding its military and establishing alliances with other Greek states, including the Aetolian League, and added some cities in Greece, in an attempt to counter Roman influence. Perseus's ambitions and his efforts to reassert Macedonian hegemony in the region alarmed Rome. Rome, still traumatized by its previous confrontations with Macedon and determined to maintain its dominance over the Greek world, viewed Perseus as a significant threat. The growing Macedonian power under Perseus did not sit well with Rome, and by 171 BCE, the Roman Senate had decided that it was time to take decisive military action. The Battle of Pydna, 168 BCE. The pivotal moment in the Third Macedonian War came at the Battle of Pydna in 168 BCE. Roman forces, led by, General Lucius Aemilius Paulus, confronted Perseus's Macedonian army in a decisive battle. The Macedonian army, though formidable, fought with the traditional Macedonian phalanx formation, which was rigid and suited to battle in open terrain but struggled in more fluid dynamic encounters. The Roman legions, known for their flexibility, discipline, and ability to adapt to changing battlefield conditions, exploited this weakness. The battle was catastrophic for Perseus and his army. Despite having the numerical advantage, the Macedonian forces were routed by the Roman legions. The battle itself was marked by the crushing defeat of the Macedonian phalanx, which was broken apart by the Romans' more maneuverable and cohesive legions. The outcome of the Battle of Pydna was decisive, as it effectively destroyed the heart of Macedonian military power and marked the end of Perseus's efforts to restore Macedonian strength. Aftermath. The end of Macedonian independence. The Battle of Pydna sealed the fate of Macedon. After the Roman victory, Perseus was captured and taken to Rome as a prisoner, where he was paraded in a Roman triumph before being executed. With his defeat, the Macedonian kingdom collapsed, and its independence came to an end. In the aftermath of the war, Macedon was divided into 4 separate client republics. These republics were designed to be subservient to Rome, though they retained a degree of local governance. However, these divisions were not based on Macedonian sovereignty. Instead, they were a clear indication of Roman control over the region. The division was not an act of benevolence, but a means of preventing the rise of another powerful Macedonian kingdom that could challenge Roman supremacy. Rome's control over Macedon marked the definitive end of the Macedonian monarchy and its independent role in the Greek world. The war had far-reaching consequences for the entire Balkan region, as it set the stage for further Roman dominance and the eventual annexation of Macedonia as a province. Macedon's subjugation and the broader impact on Greece. The fall of Macedon also had a profound impact on the wider Greek world. Many Greek city-states that had once been aligned with or had depended on Macedon now found themselves increasingly under Roman influence. The region of Greece, long a collection of independent city-states, was now falling into the orbit of Roman power, a trend that would only accelerate in the coming decades. The subjugation of Macedon by Rome also signified a shift in the power dynamics of the Mediterranean. Rome had established its dominance over the Greek world after a series of conflicts with various Hellenistic powers, and by the time of the Third Macedonian War, it had positioned itself as the undisputed military and political force in the eastern Mediterranean. The defeat of Macedon and the division of the kingdom into client republics ensured that the Romans would not face another unified Macedonian threat. Moreover, the end of Macedonian independence marked a turning point in the history of the Hellenistic world. With the Macedonian kingdom's collapse, the influence of other Hellenistic kingdoms, such as the Seleucid Empire, was also in decline, and Rome emerged as the dominant power in the region. This shift ultimately set the stage for the complete annexation of Greece and the rest of the Hellenistic world into the Roman Empire over the next several decades. Conclusion. The Third Macedonian War, 171 to 168 BCE, marked the definitive end of Macedonian independence and was one of the final steps in Rome's domination of the eastern Mediterranean. The ambitious efforts of King Perseus of Macedon to restore his kingdom's power resulted in a military conflict with Rome that culminated in the Battle of Pydna. The defeat of Macedon and the subsequent division of the kingdom into 4 client republics were key moments in the consolidation of Roman control in the Greek world. The war also symbolized the end of the Hellenistic era, with the growing Roman Empire poised to absorb the cultural and political legacies of Greece and Macedon into its expanding borders. This conflict, along with others in the region, would eventually lead to the fall of Greece and Macedonia into the Roman Empire, completing Rome's dominance in the eastern Mediterranean. The Fourth Macedonian War, 150 to 148 BCE, and the Achaean War, 146 BCE, represent the final phase of Roman conquest and subjugation of Greece. Despite previous Roman victories and increasing control over the Greek world, resistance to Roman domination continued to flare up, culminating in 2 significant rebellions, one led by a Macedonian pretender and the other by the Achaean League, a coalition of Greek city-states. Both conflicts were brutally crushed by Roman forces, signaling the complete eradication of Greek independence and the ultimate establishment of Roman hegemony over Greece. Andriscus's Revolt, 150 to 148 BCE. The Fourth Macedonian War began with the rise of Andriscus, a self-proclaimed son of King Perseus of Macedon, who sought to restore the Macedonian monarchy and undo the consequences of the earlier Roman victories. Andriscus, known as the False Perseus, rallied support among Macedonians who were discontented with Roman rule, and he successfully seized the Macedonian throne in 150 BCE. His rebellion posed a significant challenge to Roman authority in the region, and he initially gained considerable traction by taking advantage of the instability that followed the division of Macedonia into 4 client republics after the Third Macedonian War. However, Rome quickly mobilized to crush this rebellion. The Roman Senate sent forces to deal with Andriscus, who, despite some initial successes, was ultimately unable to match the military might of Rome. In 148 BCE, Roman legions under the command of Quintus Caecilius Metellus decisively defeated Andriscus. The pretender was captured, and the Macedonian kingdom was annexed directly into the Roman Republic as a province. This marked the official end of Macedon's status as an independent entity, and from this point on, it would remain a key part of the Roman Empire. Rome's swift and decisive response to Andriscus's revolt demonstrated its growing ability to maintain control over its newly acquired territories and suppress any attempts at resistance. The annexation of Macedonia as a Roman province was a critical step in solidifying Roman control over the Greek world and effectively ended any remaining hopes of Macedonian resurgence. The Achaean League's defiance. While Macedon had been subdued, a significant portion of Greece still remained under Roman influence, but had not been fully pacified. The Achaean League, an alliance of several Greek city-states in the Peloponnese, represented a stronghold of resistance against Roman dominance. The Achaeans had enjoyed a degree of autonomy under Roman oversight, but their growing discontent with Roman control eventually led them to defy Roman authority. The Achaean League was initially content to maintain its position as a Roman client state, but as tensions rose, its leaders began to take a more hostile stance toward Roman rule. A combination of political instability, anti-Roman sentiment, and a desire for greater independence led to the League's decision to rebel. The League was largely influenced by the city of Corinth, which had a long history of resisting foreign domination and was keen to restore Greek autonomy. The Achaeans began to rally against Roman interests, and by 146 BCE, open conflict broke out between the Romans and the Achaean League. Battle of Corinth, 146 BCE. The final and most decisive act in the Greek resistance occurred at the Battle of Corinth in 146 BCE. The Roman consul, Lucius Mummius, was tasked with putting down the Achaean rebellion. Mummius advanced with a large Roman army to besiege Corinth, the principal city of the Achaean League. The city, which had been the focal point of Greek resistance to Roman domination, made a last stand in an attempt to preserve Greek sovereignty. The Romans, however, were unyielding and utterly crushed the Greek forces. Corinth was captured, and the battle ended in a resounding Roman victory. In the aftermath, the city was subjected to horrific retribution. Roman forces massacred or enslaved the population, and the city itself was looted and burned to the ground. This brutal act not only destroyed Corinth, but also symbolized the end of significant Greek resistance to Roman power. The destruction of Corinth in 146 BCE marked a profound turning point in Greek history. It was the final blow to the last significant attempt by the Greeks to resist Roman rule. The complete annihilation of Corinth, one of the most important cities in the Greek world, symbolized the irrevocable end of Greece's political autonomy and its transition into a province of the Roman Republic. Aftermath and the complete subjugation of Greece. Following the destruction of Corinth and the suppression of the Achaean League, Greece was finally and fully brought under Roman control. The Romans dissolved the Achaean League, and Greece was officially integrated into the Roman Empire. The destruction of Corinth and the annexation of Greece were followed by the creation of the province of Achaea, which would remain under Roman rule for centuries. While the Greek city-states retained some degree of local autonomy under Roman rule, they were no longer independent or sovereign entities. The cultural and intellectual influence of Greece on Rome, however, would continue to be profound. Greek philosophers, artists, and intellectuals had long played a key role in shaping Roman society, and even as Greece lost its political independence, its cultural legacy continued to shape Roman life. The final conquest of Greece marked the conclusion of a long process of Roman expansion in the eastern Mediterranean. Over the course of several centuries, Rome had gradually absorbed the Greek world through military conquest, diplomacy, and manipulation. The Fourth Macedonian War and the Achaean War were the last two chapters in this process, effectively ending Greek independence and solidifying Rome's dominance in the Mediterranean. Conclusion. The Fourth Macedonian War, 150 to 148 BCE, and the Achaean War, 146 BCE, represent the culmination of Greek resistance against Rome and the final phase of Greek subjugation. The rebellion led by Andriscus in Macedonia and the subsequent revolt of the Achaean League were significant attempts to defy Roman rule, but these efforts were decisively crushed. The defeat of these rebellions, particularly the destruction of Corinth in 146 BCE, marked the end of Greek political independence and the complete establishment of Roman control over Greece. The Roman victory in these wars signified the transformation of Greece from a collection of independent states into a province within the Roman Empire, though Greek culture would continue to exert a profound influence on Roman civilization. Aftermath. Greece under Roman rule. The aftermath of Greece's conquest by Rome marked by the Fourth Macedonian War, 150 to 148 BCE, and the Achaean War, 146 BCE, led to the full integration of Greece into the Roman Empire. This monumental transition had far-reaching consequences, not only for the political landscape of Greece, but also for the cultural and economic evolution of the region. Despite the military defeat and the loss of political autonomy, Greece's influence on Rome persisted in profound ways, shaping the cultural and intellectual foundations of the Roman world. Provincialization, Greece as the province of Achaia. The incorporation of Greece into the Roman sphere was formally completed after the Achaean War and the destruction of Hellenic Corinth in 146 BCE. Greece was not merely absorbed as a single political unit. Instead, it became part of a newly established Roman province known as the Achaia. This new province marked the official end of the independent Greek city-states and kingdoms which had once dominated the Mediterranean and the wider Hellenistic world. As a province, Achaia was governed by Roman officials and integrated into the larger administrative framework of the Roman Republic, later the Roman Empire. The Greek cities were no longer free to govern themselves. Rather, they were required to conform to Roman laws, policies, and economic systems. Roman officials were appointed to oversee the region, and taxation policies were implemented to ensure the financial contributions of the Greek cities to the Roman state. Although some local governance structures remained in place, they were subordinate to Roman rule, and their political independence was thoroughly diminished. The conquest and annexation of Greece were part of a larger Roman strategy to consolidate control over the eastern Mediterranean. By placing Greece under direct Roman administration, Rome ensured its dominance over the region, strategically positioning itself at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. The military presence of Roman legions, as well as the stationing of Roman officials in key cities, ensured that Greece was effectively neutralized as a potential threat to Roman power. Despite the loss of political independence, the provincialization of Greece did bring a certain degree of key stability to the region. The wars and internal strife that had previously characterized Greek politics, exemplified by the frequent conflicts between city-states and rival leagues, were largely diminished under Roman governance. This stability provided a foundation for economic growth and urban development. Cultural impact, the lasting legacy of Greek influence. Even though Greece was politically subjugated and incorporated into the Roman Empire, its cultural impact on Rome was profound and enduring. The famous phrase, Graecia capta ferum victorem cepit, meaning captured Greece captured its savage conqueror, captures the essence of this cultural exchange. While Rome had militarily conquered Greece, it was Greek culture that ultimately shaped Roman intellectual, artistic, and philosophical life. Greek culture had already influenced Rome in significant ways prior to the conquest, especially during the period of Roman expansion into the Greek-speaking world. Greek art, literature, philosophy, and education had long been admired by the Roman elite, many of whom studied in Greek-speaking centers like Athens. However, following the formal conquest, this influence became even more pronounced as Romans increasingly turned to Greek thought as a model for their own cultural and intellectual development. The most notable Greek influence on Rome was in the realm of philosophy. The Stoic and Epicurean schools of thought, which had originated in Greece, were adopted by prominent Roman thinkers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. These philosophical traditions shaped Roman attitudes toward ethics, governance, and personal conduct. Additionally, Platonic and Aristotelian thought continued to influence Roman education and political theory. Greek philosophers became prominent figures in Roman intellectual life, and Roman elites took great pride in their association with Greek philosophy. Greek art and architecture also played a pivotal role in shaping Roman aesthetics. The Romans, who had initially adopted Greek models of art and architecture, went on to make these styles their own, incorporating them into Roman public buildings, temples, and private villas. The adoption of Greek sculptural styles and the building of grand monuments like the Pantheon in Rome were direct reflections of Greek influence. Roman artists and architects were heavily inspired by the classical Greek forms, and Greek statues, paintings, and pottery were considered prestigious items for Roman collectors. Perhaps the most significant cultural import from Greece to Rome was the Greek language itself. While Latin remained the official language of the Roman state, Greek became the lingua franca of the intellectual and elite classes. In fact, during the imperial period, Greek was widely spoken and studied by the Roman aristocracy, who saw it as a mark of education and sophistication. Many Roman writers, including Virgil, Cicero, and Horace, engaged with Greek literary traditions in their works. The study of Greek literature, from Homer to Sophocles to Herodotus, became essential to Roman education, and Greek literary forms were adapted and transformed by Roman authors. Pax Romana, stability and prosperity under Roman rule. Following the formal incorporation of Greece into the Roman Empire, the region experienced a long period of relative stability and a prosperity, especially under the Pax Romana, Roman peace, which lasted from the reign of Emperor Augustus, 27 BCE 14 CE, until the 2nd century CE. This era was characterized by a reduction in warfare, widespread infrastructure development, and the expansion of trade and communication networks throughout the Mediterranean. Under Roman rule, Greece's cities and countryside benefited from the peace and order imposed by Roman authorities. Infrastructure projects such as roads, aqueducts, and public buildings were constructed, improving both the urban and rural living conditions. Cities like Athens, Corinth, and Ephesus flourished as centers of commerce, art, and learning, becoming cosmopolitan hubs where Greek and Roman culture intertwined. The Roman Empire's vast trade network also helped to stimulate Greece's economy. Greece's agricultural products, including olive oil and wine, were traded throughout the empire. Additionally, Greek artisans and craftsmen gained access to a broader market for their goods. The influx of wealth from trade and the security of the Roman administration allowed Greek cities to thrive in ways that had been impossible during the chaotic period of Hellenistic and early Roman conquest. However, while the economic conditions improved and the people of Greece generally benefited from the stability of Roman rule, the region never regained its political independence. Greek cities retained a semblance of local governance, but they were always subordinate to Roman authority. In practice, this meant that Greek leaders were either appointed by Rome or were controlled by Roman political interests. Greek city-states had little autonomy in matters of foreign policy, military affairs, and high-level political decision-making. The enduring influence of Greek culture on Roman society. Though Greece had lost its political independence, the cultural and intellectual legacy of Greece remained central to Roman identity. Roman elites continued to view Greece as the pinnacle of artistic and intellectual achievement. Greek culture, far from being extinguished by Roman conquest, was embraced and celebrated. For example, Roman Stoicism, influenced by Greek philosophers like Zeno and Epictetus, took on a more pragmatic tone, focusing on themes of virtue, duty, and the governance of the state. Roman law, while drawing on Greek concepts of justice and morality, developed into a unique system that became the foundation for modern legal traditions. Similarly, Greek artistic and architectural principles were reshaped to reflect Roman values of grandeur, power, and imperial ambition. This cultural adoption was not confined to intellectual elites. As Greek art, philosophy, and culture spread throughout the empire, they became embedded in the daily lives of ordinary Romans as well. Public festivals, theater performances, and philosophical debates became a vital part of Roman life, ensuring that Greek influence permeated all levels of society. Even in the provinces, Greek cities like in Athens and Alexandria continued to serve as centers of learning and cultural exchange, where Roman elites went to study Greek philosophy, literature, and rhetoric. Roman stability, the Pax Romana, and Greek prosperity. Under Roman rule, Greece entered a period of relative stability and prosperity known as the Pax Romana, which lasted from the reign of Emperor Augustus through the 2nd century CE. This era was marked by peace throughout the Roman Empire, with fewer large-scale military conflicts and a greater focus on infrastructure, trade, and urbanization. For Greece, the Pax Romana brought economic growth and increased integration into the vast Roman trade network, which spanned the Mediterranean and beyond. During this time, Greek cities like Athens and Corinth flourished as cultural and commercial centers. Though politically subordinate to Rome, these cities maintained their intellectual and artistic traditions. The cultural and educational influence of Greece remained a significant part of Roman life, with many Roman elites taking pride in their Greek heritage and ensuring that Greek culture continued to thrive within the empire. While Greek cities lost their political independence, they benefited from Roman peace, stability, and infrastructure development. The construction of roads, aqueducts, and public buildings facilitated communication and trade, contributing to the economic vitality of the region. Greek artisans, merchants, and scholars continued to make significant contributions to Roman culture, while Greek cities remained important centers for the spread of Roman civilization. The enduring legacy, Greece's influence on the Western world. In the long term, the Roman conquest of Greece led to the enduring legacy of Greek culture, philosophy, and art within Western civilization. As the Roman Empire expanded across Europe, the Greek legacy was carried with it, influencing Roman provinces and later shaping the intellectual and cultural development of medieval Europe and the Renaissance. Greek ideas continued to be foundational in the development of Western philosophy, science, and the arts, with the Greek Renaissance influencing the Italian Renaissance in the 14th to 16th centuries. Even after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Greek culture continued to play a significant role in the development of Western thought through the Christian Church and the preservation of Greek texts by Byzantine scholars. The study of Greek philosophy, literature, and science became central to the intellectual traditions of the Western world, further cementing the legacy of Greece in the shaping of modern Western civilization. Conclusion: a complex conquest. The Roman conquest of Greece was a gradual and complex process that involved military battles, political alliances, and cultural exchange. Although Greece lost its political independence, its cultural, intellectual, and artistic achievements endured through the Roman Empire and beyond. This documentary has highlighted the intricate relationship between war, diplomacy, and cultural influence that shaped one of history's most consequential conquests. Greece's military defeat did not lead to the extinction of its civilization. Instead, it ensured that Greek ideas, philosophy, and art would continue to inspire and enrich the Roman world, leaving an indelible mark on the foundations of Western civilization. The cultural fusion between Greece and Rome became one of the most influential legacies of the ancient world, continuing to shape the modern world in profound ways.